material witness on an aggravated battery. They believe this might be.
My name is Brian Smith. I'm the Chief of Police in Port Angeles, Washington. I've been in law enforcement for 37 and a half years, and I've had a great career. I love this profession. I love the people I work with. I've had some fantastic experiences. My background is maybe unique in some ways, but a lot of it has much in common with the rest of the women and men at PAPD. I started out with the National Park Service in 1981 as a law enforcement park ranger and as a paramedic. I had the opportunity to promote a few times, move to some great areas and some interesting places. Grand Canyon National Park, I was a shift supervisor, a supervisory park ranger. Yosemite National Park, I was a special agent criminal investigator and later a shift supervisor. I worked at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center for 3 years in the Division of Behavioral Science as an instructor, which is a large academy, I think the largest in the United States. And I was the supervisory special agent at Yellowstone and later the regional special agent in charge. A whole bunch of words, but I had the opportunity to supervise criminal investigators who were in 5 states, including the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Colorado, Texas, and all the way up to the Canadian border and down to the Mexican border. Some of the things I've seen in 37 years, the changes for us, most good, some bad. When I started and through most of my Park Service career, we were very proactive. We went out and we looked for things. We patrolled, we engaged from a proactive standpoint. Coming to PAPD 10 years ago, I was struck with how reactive our work was here. Calls for service. Last year, we did almost 27,000 calls for service right here. And the world in 2018 for PAPD and for Clallam County and for most of law enforcement here is very little discretionary time to be out on patrol, looking for things to take action on, to be proactive about. Much of our job is reactive, and almost all of our arrests involve something we were called to. Doing law enforcement in a national park, you're afforded with the opportunity to make the park as park-like as you can make it, and law enforcement is part of that. Maintaining an environment that's safe and secure and a place you'd want to visit. Municipal law enforcement, it's the same challenge. Our job is to make Port Angeles safe and secure and a place you would want to live, learn, visit, work, and play. It's much harder to do that in an urban environment here. We control less. We have to adapt to things that limit our authority. We also have opportunities here to partner with people. Some of the things I think you've seen during your summer is how much outreach we do, how much our officers do work with people, with partners to get folks, we call it upstream, ahead of them committing a crime or ahead of them doing something that requires them to be transported by the fire department. If we get them into services, get them help, we're glad to do that. And it doesn't take away any of our policing duties and responsibilities. We know what our job is. We're willing and able and ready to be police officers every day of the week and enforce the law, make arrests, do what we need to do. But we're also glad to do what we can do to help people and get them into something before they've committed a crime, before they've gone to the hospital. My time in this profession has been challenging, but also very rewarding. And I think you hear from a lot of the people you've talked to in this series, when they leave the profession, they miss the people, which I agree with that. The people are why you come to work every day, but the work as well is something that someday when I retire I'll miss. Law enforcement is just a great profession, and we have the opportunity to do good work with people every day. We put bad guys in jail, but we also help people, and we have some exciting moments. And I'm not complaining because I have a great job, but part of me misses the part that's out in the field doing the work that the officers get to do. And I'm very proud of the women and men at PAPD, and a part of me wishes I was still out there with them every day on calls for service. 1986 in June, I'm a boat ranger at a national recreation area in Georgia with the National Park Service. I'm a law enforcement officer. I'm operating a boat. I'm in a busy river area, lots of people consuming alcohol, lots of intoxication, a lot of violence. The New York Times had done a story with me as the interviewee, and I described my patrol beat as one 10-mile floating bar. And my employer at the time didn't necessarily like that characterization, but it was accurate. So on a Saturday afternoon in June, a bunch of rafts are tied together. I'm proceeding past them in my jet boat, and I'm asking to see life jackets. Very routine contact. People are generally very friendly. They all hold up a life jacket. One of the guys on the rafts are tied together, yells profanity at me and my partner. He gets into a physical fight with people on the boat. He commits an assault right in front of us. So now he's going to be arrested. And we almost talk him onto the bow of my boat, and then things change. He's in the water. My backup officers chase him, and I wind up with an officer who's brand new in the water in a struggle with this guy with a crowd surrounding him. So I go in the water, and again, things that you don't expect to happen. I find myself underwater with a suspect on top of me. So I've disappeared from view. I am underwater. And so what my mind is going through is, how did I get in this situation? How can I explain this? How much trouble am I going to get? But what I'm thinking about is how I'm going to use my firearm and discharge it against this guy to get myself out of that situation. And then this is a matter of seconds. I'm out of the water. I put him in what they call a neck restraint. He surrenders. He stops resisting. He is intoxicated, but he's a fairly reasonable guy. And I don't think to this day, if he realizes how close he came to being deceased at that moment, that he's alive only because my brain was full of too many things to think about to discharge my firearm when I legally could have and should have. He spent a year in jail for that event, and those are the kinds of things that happen to you. Again, routine situation that turns into something that just will never end, makes the news. June of 1992, south rim of the Grand Canyon. My patrol team is on duty. It's a Friday night. We probably have 15,000 people in the village, we call it. It's a city, the south rim. And there's this guy named Danny Ray Horning. He's a fugitive. He's been on the run in Arizona for about a month. And he's a murderer. He's a criminal. He's violent. He shoots at the police. He's been traveling and engaging law enforcement in these rolling gunfights, pursuits, manhunts. And so we're aware of him. But you don't think that he's going to wind up where you are. So sure enough, he has, unbeknownst to us, kidnapped 2 people in Flagstaff, Arizona. And he's kept them hostage for several days. He's come and gone from the Grand Canyon. So in the parking lot of the store that's in the village, where the post office and the bank and one of the hotels is, he decides what he should do is kidnap a family that's standing next to their motorhome. That's the next thing he needs to do. So he drives up to a family who's standing outside their motorhome, brandishes I believe it was a 44 6-inch revolver, with the people in the back of his car still being held hostage. So as he's holding them at gunpoint, a law enforcement ranger in a patrol car, in a Chevy Caprice police car, is just driving slowly across the parking lot. And he has gotten a radio call about someone with a firearm in the parking lot. And that's, this is Arizona, so we get these calls. And I heard the call, and as I'm responding to a report of a man with a gun at Babbitt's parking lot. Well, the call is really a guy who's in the process of trying to kidnap people. So our officer is driving slowly towards this group of people, not realizing what he's seeing. One of the 13-year-old from the group runs towards him, approaches the police car, and tries to tell him what's happening. Well, the officer's processing that, gets within maybe 30 feet, and the subject, Danny Ray Horning, turns around and points the gun at him. So our officer is deploying a shotgun, diving for cover. Suspect gets back to the vehicle, and the chase is on. And again, this is happening in the middle of a very busy area with people. The chase lasts about 10 minutes, maybe 5 miles. And in that time, he drives through several crowded areas. He shoots at one police vehicle with 2 officers at a distance of about 5 feet across their windshield to where their ears are ringing, but misses. He nearly collides with one of our officers who tries to cut him off. He is shooting through his back window at the primary officers behind him. The officer believes that the interior light's coming on. He doesn't realize he's being shot at right away. The sum total of this, he stops up on West Rim Drive, and as the first officer in the chase, we've got, I think, 5 officers, 4 units in this chase, comes around the corner. Our officer sees him standing there aiming at him, firing at him. Well, that leads to a 10-day manhunt. Our suspect escapes. We rescue the hostages. At one point, we had 800 officers there, maybe 7 aircraft. The park remains open during the 4th of July weekend, and I lose a month's worth of sleep. And this, I mean, the story just goes on and on. It involves one more kidnapping, one more attempted kidnapping, 2 other gunfire incidents, and the incident ends when he gets through 3 of our roadblocks, gets out on the interstate, shoots at a trooper that has nothing to do with this incident, crashes his car, and the next day the U.S. Border Patrol and Sheriff's deputies capture him. Biggest manhunt in Arizona history at the time, and one of those things that, like doing a manhunt, when we do them, I added life experience in that function that like would be worth a couple of careers in terms of what I experienced, all the things that went wrong, all the challenges, and having an event that big that you're in the middle of that you can't control. But I remember it, and I remember it now as a great adventure. I'm glad we caught him. I'm glad my folks were safe, and I would not have missed that for anything. Now, the thing about this job, and I would bet you hear this from everybody, we deal with a lot of people. Most people we deal with are good people. They truly are good people. There are some bad people out there, and then there are a few people that I would say are evil. They are really, really evil. But we know that the majority of the people we deal with are good, and there's people that are in between. Our job isn't personal, and a lot of times what we do, us taking action, us making an arrest of somebody, will change their life. In my previous career when I was a patrol officer, making drunk driving arrests was one of my areas of interest and specialty, and I was known for it. I think I changed people's life by arresting them, taking to jail, and towing their car, and getting them in the system. People have told me that. I enjoyed doing it. I felt bad for them sometimes, but I knew that they didn't kill anyone, they didn't crash anybody, that they're going to jail, they're going to pay money, it's embarrassing, but their life will continue. And I would go out and look forward to arresting drunk drivers. Sounds weird, but I enjoyed that work, and I think it was valuable, and I've seen the results of crashes where intoxicated and impaired drivers have hurt innocent people. And so I knew I was doing some good the whole time I was doing that. The people that work here today, that are in this building today, they'll be in this building tonight, they have a difficult job. I have tremendous respect, admiration, and affection for them. I lose sleep sometimes about something happening to them, but I know that they're the best trained and the smartest people we've ever put out there. And I tell them this, that I know that when they're rolling out on a job, doing something, that I can sleep well because they're out there and they're looking after me and they're looking after the best for my community. I couldn't be more proud of them, and I think they're the legacy of all the people that have come before them, all the people that you see on the walls in our pictures, some of the people you've talked to. And I think PAPD is a great place, and I'm very, very happy to be part of it. So we were talking about the thin blue line, and I know you've heard of that concept. This mourning badge is for a fallen officer in Kent Police Department, and it's black and it's got a little blue stripe in it. It symbolizes the thin blue line. But the idea of the thin blue line is right here in this picture. That's a thin blue line. That separates civilization from chaos.